Hey everybody, it's day 2 of the Elevate Your Brand Challenge, and I'm Steve Garvin back here with Bernadette Geyer, and we're going to be talking about your ideal client, your target customer. And one of the thoughts that I posted elsewhere recently was just the idea of what we're doing in our branding is that we're trying to communicate that that the relationship that we have with our ideal client is one that fits, that that there's some resonance there, and that takes some care and some selection and some effort in order to make sure that you're communicating effectively with the person that you want to be communicating with. What are your thoughts, Bernadette?
Well, I like to sort of craft when I'm creating blog posts or social media posts, or when I'm writing the text for my website. I like to pretend that I'm actually speaking the words to the potential client, and it helps me figure out what words I want to use, the personality that I want to have, the relationship I want to have with the client. So, in order to figure all of that out, you first have to know who your ideal client is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this has a lot of really great potential for images. Your side of things, just like I think of making a collage of like all of the faces of people who might be your target client, and like having it in front of you when you're creating your texts.
Yeah.
But
Well,
like, yeah.
yeah. I actually did a challenge for identifying your ideal client a while ago, and one of the exercises that I had people do was to this is the way that I like to work is one, I believe that we have a lot of the answers that we're looking for already. We just the challenge oftentimes is accessing the information that we have. And so I started out with having everybody just do literally a crayon drawing of their ideal client, because it gave everybody opportunity to get into a different space where, it's not so much about being exact or right or anything. It's more about being expressive and emotional and free and creative and so forth. And it was really interesting to see what showed up in people's crayon drawings of their ideal clients. Because it not only was the kind of the image and the demographic aspects of the client, but there was also more the psychographic. And for the difference between demographic and psychographic, demographic is more statistical information. So, male, female, 45 to 55.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I always see in other places where I've participated in challenges where they're telling you to figure out who your target client is, and they're like, is it male or female, and what is the age range, and they want to know, like, what do they eat for breakfast, and they get like so specific, and I'm all and this is what I was kind of alluding to yesterday. It's like, I hate getting that specific. They drive a Cadillac, they breakfast at Tiffany's, their dog is called Chipper, and I can't get that specific about my target client, because and maybe many of the participants here are similar in that they have very different skill sets, and their business may have very different services, and this particular service may be targeted towards this type of client. This other service might be targeted towards a different client. And when you're talking one-on-one with people, then you can really tailor how you speak. Like when I'm talking to startups, I have a very different communication style to when I'm talking with, an author, because I
Hmm.
copy edit for startups and authors. There's no way I can be specific about what I do.
Hmm.
There's no way I can be specific, so specific about my target client, because I have so many different types of targets. So I just, it helps to think about a target client, but, you don't have to get so specific about, do they wear Gucci, or do they wear, Burberry's, or, do they wear H&M or
Hmm.
Target? You know,
Yeah. Well, I think it's really about, resonance, and can you feel that connection, that bond with your client, right? So when you're talking to authors, they're going to use a certain uh, frames of reference and language and so forth. Whereas when you're talking to more of a startup, whose focus is more on the business aspect of it, their frame of reference is going to be different. The language they use is going to be different.
exactly.
And it's, really, and when it comes to branding, the messaging that you're putting out there, with your services, reflects differently to the different markets you have, which is why a lot of businesses will have, have a few customer avatars, profiles of who their people are, so that, when they're speaking to these different audiences, they're speaking appropriately, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you might have your little collages, and then pull out which collage you're addressing in, this particular blog post, or, this particular social media post.
Right, exactly. So, um, and one of the things that I've come to realize is that, just like there's the verbal vocabulary that you have, that people respond to, and a corporate person is going to talk about ROI, and um,
Jargon. Oh,
yeah, different jargon that an author isn't going to be talking about, but um, anyway, but the frame of reference is different, and so it's being careful about how you're communicating, and having that consistent message coming through to all your people. So how do
yeah.
you, when you're doing that and you're putting something up on, Facebook or social media somewhere, and you've got your different types of clients coming in, seeing your posts, how do you address each of those different types of clients at the same time, or do you?
Well, I think, and when I started out, I had sort of like a different personality type in each, depending on who I was addressing.
Hmm.
And I've sort of figured out a way, well, not figured out a way, but I've kind of found my voice, my way of just using my personality to talk to all of the groups.
Hmm.
And, my personality will kind of ring true to certain types of startups, but it will not ring true to other types of other types of startups.
Hmm.
My personality will, be good for some authors, but not other authors. And I think that just by having my personality of what I want, how I want to be with my clients, I don't want to have to put on airs for my clients. So that's really what I have come through, is that, when I'm talking to my ideal customer, no matter who they are, I want to be able to be myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's
And
actually a real key to identifying who your ideal client is. One of the things that I talk about is that, your ideal client is a person that you'd be comfortable sitting down to have coffee with, and
yeah,
sit down at the cafe and have a casual conversation with.
yeah,
If when there's that kind of relationship where you're comfortable around each other, it just makes it so much easier to work with them. And
Yeah.
and how you show up in your branding really supports or uh, can support or hurt that relationship. And so
Right.
that's what we're trying to do with our branding is getting really clear on the types of people that we're communicating with in the message, and again, like we said yesterday, being really clear that um, about who we are. Like you said, when you're putting your messaging out there, the thing you're focusing on is reflecting who you are, rather than trying to speak to 5 different types of clients.
Exactly.
Because that
And if your personality really is the kind of personality like Gary Vee, I don't think I could work with Gary Vee.
Yeah.
His personality type is just and were I to if I were to put myself out there like a Gary Vee, it would probably turn off a lot of the people that I do work with, because they just that's not the kind of people that I want to work with.
Right. Yeah. So and exactly. That's the thing. I feel the same thing. I think Gary Vee has done some amazing stuff, and I respect what he's done and his ideas and so forth. But I also brace myself every time I listen to him, and I'm subscribed to his podcast. So, but I have to. But he's obviously reached lots and lots and lots of different people. I think he's saying the same thing too, as he's Gary Vee and that's who he is, and that attracts a certain demographic, a certain type of person.
Exactly. But there's a different business type for every customer type.
Right.
And it's when you are true to the type of customer that you want to focus on, they'll be attracted to you.
Right. Yeah. So again, come back to center and focus on reflecting who you are. And that's one of the things actually I've said elsewhere, is that when it comes to visuals, it's a good image will do 3 things. First of all, it'll be attractive to your clients. So in this instance, you're going to be using the language or the phrasing, the point of view, that is attractive to your clients. So you're going to be Bernadette, I'm going to be Steve, Gary Vee is going to be Gary Vee, and there's a certain amount of attractiveness to that in different ways for each person. And then the second thing is that, and this goes along with that, is that you want it to reflect who you are, right? So, Gary Vee isn't going to put out, hand-drawn images, most likely, that, or photos from his morning walk, but he'll put out, stuff about his sports team and, different experiences like that.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is you always want your images and your words to add value, so it's not just another pretty picture, but it's a pretty picture that adds to the conversation.
Right.
So you get more miles to the gallon.
Yeah. So what's our challenge for folks today?
So our challenge for today is to spend some time getting clear on who your ideal client is.
Yeah, I think some of the key questions that people can use as prompts, male, female, or both. It can be both. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Okay, yeah.
Age range. You don't have to be super specific, but if you do cater towards a specific age demographic or age range, that is something to include. And then I like to include business characteristics. So like, do you focus on, you focus on entrepreneurs. Maybe some other people focus on very, very financially conservative people, or tiny mom and pop businesses, or maybe issue specific. Do you focus on environmental issues? Or are you emotion driven? Do you go for, a passionate, um, caring sort of customer, or someone who's fun spirited? Like think about, REI, or,
Mm.
like a sports or entertainment facility. They kind of, you think about the characteristics of the types of clients that you're going for. And, there might be several characteristics.
Mhm.
But then, I guess people can share.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, tell us about your ideal client.
Yeah.
Who is, what's their characteristics? What, if you could just list a few things, what would those things be? How would you, going off the visual aspect, how would you identify who your ideal client is, in a room full of people, you know, um,
That's true. Oh, I'd love to see someone do a collage that's just like a whole bunch of people, but then like right in the center is their ideal client.
right. Yeah. Yeah. And there's, you can find images all over the place. I look at thousands of images a week, and some days, probably sometimes every daily. But if you put in the right keywords into your Google search, in the images section, you can get a lot of variety.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You want to be careful about the stock figures or stock photos because they tend to be pretty plastic. But
Don't use Getty.
yeah, well, yeah, definitely. You do not. Yes, you can. And I'm not. This is for your use only. Don't use. I've got some tips we can talk about in another time about how to get images that that are safe to use, that Getty and other places won't come pounding on your door. And I've got some horror stories I can tell you about what happens when you don't follow those rules.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it didn't happen to me, but happened to a good friend of mine, and it was not.
I think I might have a blog post about the dangers of using certain images.
Yeah, just make sure you. I could do a whole episode about just that, but it is dangerous territory.
Yeah.
But
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing what everybody posts for their
yeah,
target customer.
it'll be interesting to see if there's some overlap, and maybe your ideal clients is listening to this right now. So,
Exactly. Wow, that would be awesome.
maybe there are some opportunities to work with one another here. Anyway, all the information is going to be in the document that you'll be getting, and we will talk to you soon. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye bye.